Cinemajaw is sponsored by Overcast, an independent podcast app that embraces the open world of podcasting instead of locking it down. No exclusives, no premium content, no paywalls. Just a great podcast app for everyone. Get it for free in the App Store. And we thank them for their support. You're listening to Cinemajaw, the greatest movies podcast ever, recorded on location from our respective homes in Chicago. My name is Matt Kay, and with me is...
Ryan, the movie guy, and sitting inside the fish tank is none other than Filmy and Phil.
Hello!
This week on Cinemajaw, Matt, we get our vengeance as we cover our top 5 favorite vengeful fathers.
Yeah, that's right. I'm an avenging father, Ryan. Although I guess, luckily I have nothing to really get revenge for.
I was going to say, what happened to Parker and Quinn?
Nothing. But if anything does, I'm going to be a badass. Like Liam Neeson,
They've been taken.
That's right. That's right. And I'm going to have to get like a cool vigilante voice, like, where are they? Something like that.
Christian Bale would never forgive you if you did.
No, mine will be better than Christian Bale's. His was terrible. Terrible.
Well, through the years of cinema, there have been quite a few fathers looking for revenge for very numerous things, but mostly because things have happened to their families.
Right. I mean, that's what sort of sets them apart from just a man who's looking for revenge. No, these are the fathers looking for revenge. And yes, of course, naturally, most of them have something to do, a slight against their family.
So get thinking of that, Jawheads. Vengeful fathers are top 5 this week. Besides that, we have more going on, don't we, Phil?
Yeah, we're keeping it rolling with Angelina Jolie month. So we have not only another fact, but we also got another clip.
And this is a review-o-rama here. We have 2 for you, Jawheads. Mitchell's versus the Machines and Wrath of Man.
That is Guy Ritchie's new movie, Wrath of Man, and that is our tie-in with the father out to get revenge.
A case could be made for the Mitchells versus the Machines as well, being a tie-in, Ryan.
Yes, and Mitchell's versus the Machines is out on Netflix. We're a week late. I call this one, we're going to celebrate the Mitchells and the Machines. How's that sound?
That's fine, but I'm sure people out there want to know what our take on it is as well, even if we're a little late.
I agree. So I think we got a pretty packed jaw. And if it wasn't enough, I thought, man, Phil, Matt, they got to play trivia against each other. Guy Ritchie has a new film coming out. So why don't we play Guy movie trivia?
Sounds like a fun time.
Easier than Guy Ritchie. I was sweating for a second.
It sounds good, Guy.
All right, Guy.
Do you ever have a friend named Guy?
I did.
Yeah?
Well, we called him Guy. Actually, I don't think his name was Guy, but we nicknamed him Guy.
I had a coworker named Guy. If longtime Jawheads will remember our first engineer, Reno, it was Reno's partner. His name was Guy. When I say partner, I mean business partner, like work partner, not his significant other.
Gotcha. And was he a nice guy?
He was a great guy.
Oh, man. Put that one to bed.
Yeah. Oh, we could go all night on that one.
I know, but we are playing Guy movie trivia.
All right.
Matt versus Phil. And Phil, if you're keeping track, I believe won the last 2 times Matt has played, even though Matt will claim he's still undefeated.
Undefeated. I mean, really, I can't be beat.
I love it. All right. Time to get the show rolling with an Angelina Jolie fact.
Yes. We all know Angelina can act, but did you know Angelina can fly? We're not talking about superpowers here, okay? Angelina is trained as a pilot and is fully licensed, and she even owns her own aircraft. Jolie surprised different TV audiences with her little-known skill when she was shown piloting an aircraft in the 2018 documentary, The Queen's Green Planet.
Who the hell does she think she is? Harrison Ford?
I love the idea. In my head, I picture every kind of pilot like this have like the Red Baron Pizza logo. And I just love the idea of Angelina with one of those red scarves flapping in the wind.
Like an aviator of old in one of those open cockpit biplanes. Yeah.
Big honking goggles.
Yeah. She'd make it look good. Remember, like Sky Captain in the World of Tomorrow?
Well, she had an eye patch in that.
It's badass. She looked great.
She was. But I really had no idea she could actually fly in real life, a pilot. I had no idea of this.
It's inspirational. It really is. I mean, she's a role model. A lot of people look up to her, especially young women, perhaps. And that's very empowering. Good for her.
Well, Matt, since we don't have a guest, I'll take this time to ask you this question on Angelina Jolie month. Thinking of her action movies in particular, would you say that Angelina Jolie is the best female action star we've seen, or she in the top 3, or where do you put her?
No, I don't put her at the top whatsoever.
What?
And no. And I don't put her in the top 3 either. As a matter of fact, Rye, I'm almost 100% certain, not 100%, but almost 100% certain that we did female action stars at some point in Cinemajaw history. And there's no way Angelina Jolie was on my list. Phil, can we throw it in the fish tank? What episode we did the best female action stars? It's Ellen Ripley at the top all the way. Okay. Furiosa, you got to put her. Maybe it's only like 1 or 2 roles where she's done action.
Let me pause you right here, though, because I think on that particular show, we were talking about specific characters. I'm asking as actress, overall body of work actress when it comes to action stars.
Mm-hmm. What are you saying? Like, who's the most prolific?
Michelle Rodriguez. The answer is always Michelle Rodriguez.
I'm saying, is Angelina Jolie in like the top 3? Is she number 1? Is she in the conversation?
We can put her in the conversation. We're having a conversation about it, so therefore, by default, she's in the conversation. I do not think she's top 3 material. Maybe she ekes her way into the top 5.
Well, I asked this because we're celebrating Angelina Jolie month. We got to pull facts. We got to pull clips. And when you do this and you're looking at her filmography, it's amazing on how many of them are action films. That's why I brought this up. I mean, you got the drama that, Girl Interrupted, and you got a few that, were high caliber films.
Hackers.
But once you hit like Gone in 60 Seconds, and then you go the Tomb Raider movies, you go Wanted, you go Salt, it's like action film after action film. And I'm like, oh my goodness, all she does is action films to a certain degree at a solid 7-year span of her career.
That's a fair point. But I think that the action films have been her lesser respected work, like when you think of a good Angelina Jolie role, the one that pops in your mind is probably Girl Interrupted, and she's had a few more lately that were more dramatic, and that's, I think, where she shines as an actress. Like having to pull clips from Angelina Jolie's filmography and going through all the action movies for just one tiny bit of good dialogue, it's really hard to do. They weren't good movies.
Okay. Well, I think I would put her in the conversation, probably not the top spots, but
I know you're a big fan of Salt. That one I still haven't seen.
And I'm a big fan of Wanted, and I don't think you've seen this movie either, based on a comic book shot here in Chicago. Excellent action sequences. I think you would enjoy that one.
They curve the bullets. I saw the Mythbusters where they tested it. Does that count?
No, it does not.
Oh, okay. I'll try harder, right?
Speaking of action movies, Matt, Jason Statham teams back up with director Guy Ritchie for the first time in 15 years for their latest film, Wrath of Man. This is a remake of a 2004 French film titled Cash Truck. Can Ritchie keep the positive momentum he gained with his last feature film, The Gentleman? Matt and I jumped behind the wheel and braced ourselves for this loud action ride.
This is your temporary sidearm.
What happens if we're pulling pistols in a machine gun fight?
Do you have a problem?
I don't know. Do I?
It's a 10 grand drop. You should have been back 5 minutes ago.
They're serious!
Leave this to me.
Get in the truck next time.
Sorry, pal.
Wrath of Man opens with an armored bank truck getting robbed. After some overly stylized opening credits, we meet Patrick Hill, better known as H, played by Jason Statham. He is applying for a new job at a cash truck company. This firm makes pickups of money, large amounts of cash, from banks, sporting events, concerts, anywhere that has to deal with large amounts of physical money. Just by his physical demeanor, we can tell that H is not getting this job to support himself and his family. He has an ulterior motive. And his second job out with his new crew, and this crew includes Holt McCallany, best known from Mindhunter, and Josh Hartnett. Where have you been, Josh? His truck is hit by robbers, and not just any old robbers. Post Malone is part of this crew. H shows off his dead aim and take no shit attitude. It's clear something's up. I'll leave the mystery there because the fun of Guy Ritchie's movie is figuring out who H is and what is driving him. We get several flashbacks that put us in different times and places with these characters, and H's motivation starts to crystallize. Statham plays H like every other Jason Statham character. The film does not hold back on the violence or the attitude. It is in your face and does not care how close it gets. There is a massive shootout at the end of this movie that rocked my home theater. So much so, I was afraid my neighbors were going to call the cops. While I like the way the movie jumps around to show us who H was before getting the job at the cash truck company, then showing us his motivation for getting said job, it also makes a couple of mistakes. The person H is out getting revenge for, we barely get to know or see his relationship with him. This also goes for the ultimate villain in the film. He is a cardboard cutout baddie that lacked menace. I am not hating on Wrath of Man, and I would say seeing it in a theater with all the loud gunplay should be thrilling, but I was not overly impressed like I was with Guy Ritchie's The Gentleman. Matt, you like some tough guy violence from time to time. Did Wrath of Man satisfy that appetite?
No, not at all. And it's like, who the H cares who he is? Everything that was cool about The Gentleman, all these like crazy card characters, you know, these just like everybody's got a quirk. Everybody's got something interesting about them in The Gentleman that makes you want to follow them. Even the minor characters are fun and different. That is completely absent. The characters are all, like you said, Ryan, just cardboard cutouts. Jason Statham, seriously. I mean, they might have wheeled him in on a dolly like freaking Hannibal Lecter. That's about how dynamic his acting was. And I like me some Jason Statham, but even for him, this was just phoned in. It totally didn't impress me. The color palette is just drab. It's like these steel grays and blues, and there's nothing popping about this movie at all. All the clever twists and plot points that Ritchie puts into a movie like Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels or Snatch and The Gentleman, completely missing here. Yeah, they kind of do these flashbacks and flip back and forth between the timeline, but it's been done before and done much, much better than it was here. The violence you talked about, yeah, I guess so, but we're living in a post John Wick world, and that just didn't impress me either. Like, either go full, like lean into that full tilt and give me like nonstop headshots, or don't. But like, it was too slow to be action and too action to be drama. It just didn't work. The whole thing was a mess. It didn't work. I was expecting more after his return to form.
Well, now I'm going to come off like a Wrath of Man defender here after Matt put down his foot on this one. But okay, two things about it. One, I was making fun of Statham acting just like Jason Statham in every single movie, but
that's pretty true though.
It is true. It is. But to give him credit here, once you find out his motivation and what's taken place prior to him going to get this job at the cash truck company, it makes sense that he's just no frills and he doesn't care about pretty much anything or smiling much because he's dead set on one thing, right? So it makes some sense that he wouldn't have much character to him. Agree?
Yeah, but I guess he doesn't have character in any of the other scenes either.
Well, I think they showed a little bit of a different change of character when they show one of the flashbacks prior to the whole event that sets this thing off. Maybe a little, but I agree with you, not much.
You know what's distracting as all hell? I realized while watching this movie that Jason Statham has the exact same accent as the Geico Gecko. Like, it is absolutely interchangeable. So the whole time I'm watching this movie, I was imagining the Geico Gecko with a machine gun. And maybe that made it a little bit better for me, in all honesty. I
would enjoy that. The other point that you brought up, that we've seen movies jump around and do it better, I agree. But what I liked was it wasn't so cut and dry, where we were going to get a flashback and it revealed, one thing about Jason Statham, and that was all we needed to know. It does have a couple of flashbacks that sort of reveal. Yeah, that sort of reveal not only the motivation for his character, but also like a little bit of a backstory on him that I wasn't necessarily sure what he was exactly doing before we see him apply for this job. So that was a little bit different than what we've seen in the past also.
I will say that was probably the best part of the movie. When we had that sequence of him seeking his revenge at first, his first method. If
you want to talk about bad acting, let's talk about Josh Hartnett finally coming back into a main movie. I haven't seen the guy in forever. Can we throw this in the fish tank, Phil? Just give us the last 3 Josh Hartnett films, the last 3. Just hear what the titles are. I have no clue. Boy, there's a scene in there when the truck is getting hit and he's driving and he's in the truck. He's so overacting and terrible in the role. It completely distracted me from the movie.
Yeah, there's nothing here. I mean, I hate to say it, and I'm coming off like a big hater. I'm middle of the road on this movie. I didn't hate it, but I certainly didn't love it for its amazing acting performances, because there's just none. Who do you point to as the cream of the crop in this one?
Yeah, that would be a tough question to answer right there. But I will say the film had attitude. I guess if that's something that you like, and it's not something that necessarily I'm going to walk out of there telling people to go see it because of this, but there are people that like, I'm using air quotes here, tough guy movies where it's just in your face, shoot 'em up, loud. Maybe those kind of people will say, yeah, I'm looking for this kind of film.
Okay, here's the thing, though. Yeah, I love a good tough guy movie, but this is just generic bad attitude kind of stuff. And our hero, our protagonist anyway, is completely impervious to harm, right? He's like Superman. There's literally scenes where there are bullets bouncing off of him. And granted, he's wearing body armor at the time, but come on. He's just unstoppable. The reason we like John Wick movies so much is because he takes his licks. He gets a few shots to the face. He'll get a leg shot or an arm. He'll get a knife in the shoulder, something. We see him get bruised and bloodied, and that's part of the fun. Jason Statham is just this like unstoppable killing machine who can seemingly dodge bullets, and it's not that fun to watch that.
Was there a jaw-dropping moment in this movie for you?
I dug hard, because I was really ready to say there are no jaw-dropping moments in this pretty generic action flick, but it was Post Malone. It was definitely Post Malone.
What was he doing in here? It was pretty bizarre, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. But I was really happy to see him. I guess, is that a step up from the Bud Light commercials? Perhaps.
Well, he was also in your favorite Mark Wahlberg movie, that Confidential.
Really?
What was that movie? Yeah, he was in that. He was in a big role in that too.
Wait, which one are you talking about?
Something Confidential.
Not Spencer Confidential.
There you go. Yep. Post Malone was in there.
Was he? Huh, man. I mean, like, that movie came and went. I don't really remember.
Well, you were a fan of it though.
Oh yeah, much better than this one.
For me, no, I wouldn't say that. I would actually take this over. Yeah, no, it wasn't. No, it wasn't.
Yes, it was.
No, it wasn't.
100%.
My jaw-dropping moment would be, there's a scene in here where Statham and his crew break into a house and they torture a man to get a name out of him. And at one point, they actually put a plastic bag over his bloody head. That entire sequence is what I'm talking about when the movie has attitude and it doesn't care if it gets right in your face. Man, that was a vicious scene. Like, it was just kind of disgusting how little they cared. Is why it was disgusting. Was this particular person did nothing to them at all, or was he part of the crew? They just needed to severely beat this man to get a name out of him, and that was scary and jaw
I guess
dropping.
so, man. All right, so what do you want to do? You want to do Jaws on this? What do you rate this one, man?
You got a movie poster quote first?
Oh, you want to do movie poster quote first? Sure. My quote was about as boring and generic as a revenge movie could possibly be.
I went with Jason Statham, like you've never seen before, except in these other 25 movies. And then there would be small print of the 25 films.
You know, he's pretty good in Crank. I like Crank.
Crank would be one of those, though. This was basically the same character. How many Jaws, Matt?
I'm giving it 2 Jaws, middle of the road. It sounds like I'm more down on this, but it's fine. It was a nice.
You do this from time to time.
I
Where
do.
You're really harsh on a movie, and then you're like, well, 2 Jaws, 2.5, and it's like, woof.
No, not
Man,
2.5.
It sounded like you were just going to slaughter this thing.
It was a fun movie, but I've seen everything in it done way, way better. Nothing here is original. The bag scene, by the way, didn't affect me at all. I've seen people get the proverbial bag over their head in many, many films. And yeah, like everything here has been done better elsewhere.
There's been so many times I want to do the bag over the head with Matt Kay, but I have not done it. I restrained. I'm going 2.5 Jaws for Wrath of Man. It is playing only in theaters. And like I said, it rocked my home theater here. The gun battle at the end was impressive. I mean, that was kind of like Heat impressive kind of shootout.
Oh, dude. Now that's blasphemy. Okay. That was nowhere near Heat.
It was pretty damn impressive. I'm telling you. Maybe it was because you were watching it on your little tiny phone.
That's like saying the lightsaber battle between Obi-Wan and Darth Vader, the original New Hope lightsaber battle, is the best lightsaber battle. No, it's not. It's terrible.
I think that's a terrible analogy. I wouldn't. I don't know where that came from, but
because it's stupid. You can't compare Heat to this movie. That's absolute movie blasphemy.
Just using the shootout. Yes, this was an impressive shootout at the end. It goes on for quite a long time, and there's multiple characters and a lot of gun shots. It's insane how many gun shots were in this scene.
It's just there's just machine guns, dude. I mean, all right. Wow. We totally disagree on that. Totally.
Yeah. I don't know. I was impressed with the ending. 2.5 Jaws from Ride the Movie Guy, 2 Jaws for Matt Kay. If you get out to the theater and you see Wrath of Man, let us know what you think. Shoot us a tweet at Cinemajaw, or you can always email us feedback@cinemajaw.com. Wrath of Man really got us thinking about fathers out for revenge. This was Matt's idea. Was this an easy list for you to come up with after you came up with the topic?
No, not at all. This is probably, in the 11 years we've been doing Cinemajaw, one of the hardest lists I've ever had to do. And not because I painted myself in a corner or didn't give myself enough time. I really was digging around for quite some time, trying to come up with stuff on my own, researching on the computer. Whew, tough one. How about you, man?
I came up with about 11.
All right. Wow. You easily doubled my output. So congratulations.
Nice. Yeah. I had fun putting this list together. So I got some good picks here. And I know one film I've never talked about for sure. So I'm excited to talk about it here on the Jaw.
Well, do you want to get things started then, Rye? Kick it off this week?
My number 5 pick came out in 2013. Directed by Denis Villeneuve. I'm going with Prisoners, which the avenging father is played by Hugh Jackman. The character here is Keller Dover, and he's the father of a missing girl. And after the police let a suspect go because they don't have enough evidence, Keller takes matters into his own hands. This is a dark, twisted thriller. The cast also includes Jake Gyllenhaal, Viola Davis, Terrence Howard. If you haven't seen Prisoners, do yourself a favor and put it on the queue. This is a great one. And Hugh Jackman cranked up like you really haven't seen before. Maybe in the Wolverine films he gets like this, but usually Hugh Jackman also plays in the musicals, you know. This completely different. He is one pissed off dad, and he should be.
Wow. All right. I'll check that one out. I love me a pissed off Hugh Jackman. All right. At my number 5, I have probably the most obvious pick that pops into people's mind when they hear vengeful father, Darth Vader. Just going to get it out of the way. But it belongs on this list. I mean, he's definitely one of the best movie characters of all time. He is a dad who ultimately finds redemption and avenges an attack against his son that's happening right in front of him. And he turns on his own boss and throws the Emperor down the well, or whatever that is, the bottomless pit.
The reason why I don't think this is a good pick at all, Matt, is because it's really just a moment of passion that he finally comes around and does this move. I mean, it literally takes an emperor shooting lightning into his son in front of him to finally have one moment of compassion and to take the emperor and lift him up. But all up until that, the guy wasn't avenging anything. He was just wiping people out. He was killing Jedi, kids. I mean, this is an evil person. And he does one small good thing, and you're going to put him on the top 5 fathers looking for revenge?
Well, I mean, it's a fair criticism, but you have to consider Darth Vader's character in the prequel as well. When Shmi Skywalker is captured and killed by the Sand People, he does get revenge on the Sand People. So he's a vengeful, I guess, son in this case, but he's a vengeful person in general, right? Revenge of the Sith. I mean, that's who he is. So I think it fits. He's revengeful and he's a dad.
Well, I think he could have did better there. All right,
probably. What do you got it for?
All right, my number 4. It's amazing to think that you would be scared of Tom Hanks coming after you, but he was a vengeful father in the 2002 film Road to Perdition. Directed by Sam Mendes, who just recently did 1917. This is where Tom Hanks plays a mob enforcer named Michael Sullivan during the Prohibition era. And his oldest son accidentally sees him and another enforcer, played by Daniel Craig, actually kill someone. And as a result, the mob then realizes they got to take out the son, and they send somebody over to do the job, and they actually kill the younger son and Michael Sullivan's wife. And from there, Tom Hanks and his oldest son are out on the run and now looking for revenge. Paul Newman, one of his last movies, actually, can we throw this in the fish tank, Phil? Was Road to Perdition Paul Newman's last movie? It might have been. It's got to be one of his last. Great one.
It might have been Cars, dude. It might have been Cars.
I hope not. I hope it was Road to Perdition.
I think it's Cars.
I don't know. Well, Road to Perdition, my number 4. Well worth the spin.
All right. Listen, it doesn't get much more badass than Arnold Schwarzenegger in the 80s. And there's a lot of bags to choose from. He played this a vengeful father role many times, but I don't think it was done better than the character John Matrix in Commando.
Nice. This was one of my favorites. I've talked about this, me liking Alyssa Milano so much, you know?
Yeah. Oh, of course. You know, she was a teenage heartthrob, but maybe not yet at this time when the movie was made, a would-be teenage heartthrob. And she gets kidnapped. And so her Commando father, Arnold Schwarzenegger, in all his glory, man. I mean, this is Arnie at his peak. Just goes on an absolute one-man killing spree rampage and just spouting one-liners every time he kills somebody. It's Arnie, top form, one of my favorites as well.
Big fan of Commando. All right, on to my number 3.
My name is Maximus Decimus Meridius, commander of the armies of the North, general of the Felix Legions, loyal servant to the true Emperor Marcus Aurelius. Father to a murdered son, husband to a murdered wife, and I will have my vengeance in this life or the next.
I mean, one of the best speeches ever given by Avenging Father right there. Father to a murdered son, husband to a murdered wife. Maximus Aurelius, played by Russell Crowe in Gladiator. This film came out in 2000. It's been, wow. I can't believe it's 21 years old. It's one of those that's like, what? It's that old? That's insane. Ridley Scott directed this. And what happens here is Maximus is told by the general that the general's own son, Commodus, who's played by Joaquin Phoenix, is unfit to lead, and that Maximus would succeed him and return Rome to glory. So upon hearing this, Commodus does what any evil son would do. Kills his father, orders Maximus killed, and has Maximus's wife and son murdered. Wow.
Like you do.
Brutal. But, however, between the years of 1996 and 2004, there was no stopping Russell Crowe. You just couldn't stop this guy. His career was insane during this period of time. And in every movie, Russell Crowe came out on top. He was going to one-up everybody. And he one-ups Commodus in Gladiator.
Does he not win the Oscar for this role?
He does.
So, yeah, I mean, this is Russell Crowe, certainly one of his best roles. I've got mixed feelings about Gladiator. I think it takes too much time in certain parts, but yeah, overall, it's a good movie.
I've actually went back and it sort of swayed like an ocean wave. I loved it when it came out. Then about that 5-year period afterwards, I was like, yeah, it's really not that good. And now lately I'm back on, I've watched it again and I'm like, wow, I really like Gladiator.
Oh, that's interesting.
It is. And some years ago, I actually had the chance to go to Rome and visit the Roman Colosseum. And like a goof, because I'm such a movie fan, I'm standing in the Roman Colosseum and I'm like, wow, thinking about Maximus.
Thinking about Russell Crowe.
It's so crazy. And he was a made up character. It's great. But my number 3 pick, Gladiator. I'm a fan.
All right. Back over to me for my number 3. And I'm going with a movie that I saw recently. You talk about actors who are also commonly known for playing the vengeful father role. And Liam Neeson has got to be on this list, right? But I didn't want to just pick the Taken movies because it's kind of obvious. So there's a movie that came out recently. I think it just kind of came and went. Many people didn't like it. I loved it. I thought it was kind of a real treat. The movie is called Cold Pursuit. It is a remake. Phil, can we throw it in the fish tank? There's, I believe it might be a remake of a French film. I could be way off on that. But he plays a character, Nels Coxman. He's married to Laura Dern, who's awesome in this movie. A small role for her, but she's fun. And his son dies mysteriously, right, of what appears to be a heroin overdose. But then he comes to find out, because he has some connections to crime, that it was an organized crime thing. And the movie takes place like in like this Alaskan wilderness town that's just like buried in snow, and he's like the only snowplow driver in town. So it's almost got a Fargo kind of feel with this snowy landscape. And he goes and takes out this gang of villains one by one. And this is what I was talking about in our review of the Guy Ritchie movie. Each one's personality is like more and more amped up. So if you want to see a good father revenge action movie, Cold Pursuit does it so much better than Wrath of Man, and it does it in the exact same way, but better at every step.
I have to admit, I remember liking Cold Pursuit, and as you're talking about it here, I just don't remember it that much at all. So I don't know how much of a impact it had on me, because it wasn't that long ago. That was what, 2-3 years ago?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. And it was funny. I liked it. One I would revisit. Yeah.
Well, that's what I remember, is it had a sort of a strange tone. It wasn't quite Coen Brothers Fargo, where it was that kind of laughter out loud, but it did have some humor to it, but overall was an action movie.
Yeah, it was like a dark comedy. So it probably did confuse a lot of people about how to feel about that movie, but I loved it. Definitely a genre fan kind of movie.
Swings it over to my number 2. This one came out in 1999, and this is the film I was excited to talk about on Jaw this week. Directed by Steven Soderbergh and starring Terrence Stamp. The movie is called The Limey. And this is a real treat, I'm telling you. Terrence Stamp plays an English career criminal that travels to the U.S. to investigate his daughter's death. And very much like Cold Pursuit, his daughter's death had been ruled from a car accident. They thought she died in a car accident. However, once Wilson, who is played by Terrence Stamp, once Wilson finds out that her boyfriend did more than his music business, he was into drugs, the hunt is on. Very smart, funny, exciting thriller, and Terrence Stamp is just excellent. I love the guy.
Yeah, no doubt. Good
The
pick.
Limey is a must-watch for these kind of hidden gem revenge films. 1999. Put it on the queue, Matt.
All right, we'll do.
Plus the name. You don't get a name like The Limey.
Yeah, it is a good name. Might have been a better name for the last Guy Ritchie movie. All right, so at number 2, I have Frank Castle as portrayed by Thomas Jane in The Punisher.
Never seen it.
You never saw okay, so John Travolta is the big bad in this. And honest to God, I think John Travolta is kind of good as the villain in this movie. And it's the Punisher story. All right, first of all, for anybody who doesn't know, it's a Marvel, not a superhero per se. He's kind of a vigilante. And his wife and son are murdered in a botched mob hit. And he's left holding the bodies, and it kind of just flips a switch. He was a cop, and he just goes underground and becomes a vigilante and basically kills criminals in very violent ways with lots of weapons and stuff like that. That's the whole shtick of the Punisher. And this story is one that was famous in the comics, perhaps arguably the best Punisher like storyline, where he lives with this like a tenement of misfits. Like he's in an apartment building, and he kind of makes friends with his neighbors, and they're all a bunch of like ne'er-do-well misfits that are like, they have various problems and maladies, etc. And he kind of becomes their protector. And it was a great storyline in the comics. It came across on the screen really well. His ultimate character arc going after the baddies was very satisfying. This was a fun pre-MCU Marvel film. Then, man, if he had just come out a couple years later, we would still be talking about it, you know? I liked it a lot.
And how was the lead's performance?
Thomas Jane? This put Thomas Jane on the map, right? I mean, like, there's no way we have The Mist without...
Boy, he fell
Punisher.
off that map pretty quick then, huh?
That's true.
Was he on the map for one step? Like, hey, I made it to the map. Damn it, I'm off.
Yeah. Dude, I have the weirdest Thomas Jane story if you want to hear it. First of all, I met Thomas Jane in a men's room. Were we just talking about meeting people in men's rooms recently?
Yeah, we did.
I just said, hey, how's it going to him? You know, because we were standing next to each other at the urinal. But this was at Comic-Con, and he had a mohawk. He looked super cool, and it was Thomas Jane. It was maybe a year after The Punisher, so his star was still in the sky.
He was still on the map.
100%. He was like, I recognized Thomas Jane. So he walks by our booth later.
This may have been the story that knocked him off the map. Go ahead.
Yeah, who knows? So Charles Klein, who was the very first guest ever on Cinemajaw, he's been on a number of times. He and I collaborated on a comic book. At the time, we were at Comic-Con to like hawk the comic hand over fist, you know? We were just selling comics to buy beer that night. And he walks by, Thomas Jane walks by our booth, and Chuck realized who it was, and he just blurts out, hey, you want to see it? it just the way it came out is like you just said to Thomas Jane, "Hey, you want to see it?" It's just like the sleaziest voice. It was totally accidental. I don't know. Maybe you had to be there. It was pretty funny.
And that was the last we heard of Thomas Jane
and Charles Klein.
Interesting. And one last question on the Punisher. Does he also cross paths with all the other characters in the MCU?
So no, he has not. This was in 2000.
He doesn't like play around with the raccoon or nothing.
Are you asking me in the comics? Does he or has?
Yeah, like would we eventually see him in the MCU? Like,
well, I don't know if we'll eventually see him in the MCU. I would love to see the Punisher. There was a TV show. It was with Phil. I can't remember the actor's name from The Walking Dead. He's an amazing character actor. Pops up a lot. Who played the Punisher on the TV show? Can we throw it in the fish tank? So I guess maybe that's MCU. I don't know if it's technically MCU, but yes, he does like there's Spider-Man in the Punisher comics and stuff like that. So he does team up from time to time. Yeah, I thought Ryan was standing too still. His internet went out. You owe me $1.
There were a couple of times where I was sweating because I was like,
there you go.
It only paused. It only paused, but it didn't drop.
It didn't drop.
I don't know.
Right,
I think it counts.
What do you think, Phil? Does it?
I think it counts.
Okay. I heard you.
Oh, I knew this.
Okay. Let's keep going. We had good momentum going. All right. So you just threw over the name into to Phil?
Yeah, no. And I said a whole bunch after that. I said, yes, he has teamed up with Spidey and stuff like that in the comic books.
Interesting.
It is. Punisher's a great character for sure. One of Marvel's better ones. Absolutely.
All right. Well, for my number one pick, Matt, I go with an Oscar-winning performance for A Vengeful Father, winning the Oscar. Can't get bigger than this. 2016, he crawled through snow after being eaten by a bear.
Oh, yeah. Good one.
Hugh Glass, depicted by Leonardo DiCaprio in The Revenant.
Blew my mind. Love this movie. It is brutal.
It is. This is directed by Alejandro Gonzalez Iñárritu. It's beautiful looking also, the way this film is shot, winter landscape, and DiCaprio's character it just literally goes through hell to get his vengeance. As I mentioned, he's mauled by a bear, which is a very graphic scene. And what happens then is these fur trappers decide to start carrying him back to the camp, and they realize that they just can't do it. They're not going to be able to make it. And he doesn't look like he's going to survive. So they make the tough decision of letting him sort of live out his last few days. And the idea was to actually bury him after he finally dies. And his son, Hugh Glass's son, Hawk, is there, and there's two other soldiers. One of them is played by Tom Hardy as John Fitzgerald, and he's worried about getting caught by, other natives, and he's just thinks the best thing to do is just kill Hugh Glass and then make his way back to camp. And while he's going to do this, Hawk comes by, a fight ensues, and right in front of Hugh Glass, this John Fitzgerald kills his son and just leaves these two thinking that's it, because Hugh Glass is not going to come back anyway, so it's dead. But you know what happens. He goes, like I said, crawls through epic snowfields. I mean, he at one point has to actually get into the carcass of an animal to stay alive. He goes down river. I mean, there's so many things that keep this guy going, and the motivation here is to get his revenge. I rewatched this just this past winter for the first time since seeing it in the theater, and was just blown away. Watched it on Blu-ray. It's just gorgeous to behold. Awesome performance, awesome movie, The Revenant.
Have you seen the animated thing where Leonardo DiCaprio wins the Oscar and he goes up to accept the award and he gets mauled by a bear on his way up?
I'll watch it after we get done recording. Right. That sounds hilarious. What's your number one?
All right. My number one is a Joel Schumacher joint from 1993. I'm talking about Michael Douglas as D-Fens in falling down. So
is this about his kid? I wasn't even sure. It's been a while since I've seen Falling Down, but you got to sell me on this.
okay, vengeful father, right? He is taking out his revenge against the world. And I'm not saying that he's a hero, because it's more than highly debatable. But he's absolutely on a revenge path. Every slight, everything that he's taken in life, every time he's been beaten down or pushed back, he just says, nope, not anymore. Now I'm fighting back, and goes on a vigilante sort of spree. You know, there's a lot of social commentary, and yeah, at the heart of it is his family. He's a divorced father who's he's psycho. He's not a good guy. Some of the things he does make you think, but I don't think what his actions are in the movie are meant to be portrayed as positive, if that makes sense. But nevertheless, he is a vengeful spirit. He's kind of taking out his anger on the world.
I guess. But I don't even know. Does he have a wife or a son or a daughter? Yeah. I don't even know any of that.
A wife and a daughter. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Who he does meet up with at the end of the movie. You don't remember this?
No. I mean, it's been years since I've seen it.
Bobby Duvall comes down and he's like, don't make me do it. He's got him dead to rights with the gun. And then, spoiler alert, D-Fens pulls out the squirt gun and Bobby Duvall has to shoot him.
Damn, squirt gun will get you every time.
Yep.
That was Matt's number one. Any honorable mentions for you at all? Did you have one?
Dude, no. How about you?
I had The Patriot. This is Mel Gibson.
Oh, yeah.
His son was Heath Ledger in the movie.
I was trying to remember that one. Okay.
Old Boy. One of your favorites.
I know. I didn't think of that one because it's a revenge movie, but is he a vengeful father per se? I mean, we learned some things about him through the course of the movie.
Sure. Commando, you mentioned, and Taken, which you opted for a different Liam Neeson film, but I had Taken on there.
Yeah, good ones, Ryan. Good.
If we missed your favorite vengeful father and you have Twitter pulled up, shoot us a tweet at Cinemajaw, or you can email us at feedback@cinemajaw.com. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we have a fish tank to open that is just overflowing with facts.
Brimming.
Plus a review of Mitchell's versus the Machines, and Matt takes Pfil on in Guy movie trivia. Stick with us, Guy. I remember back in 2008 seeing the trailer for the film Changeling numerous times in the theater. So many times that hearing Angelina Jolie scream, "I want my son back," was burned into my brain. It is an emotional moment in the film, but seeing the trailer so many times, I could not help but start to laugh at the overacted line read. I get it. You want your son back. Just stop screaming about it. So as we celebrate Angelina this month, here is that famous scene and line that will be burned into your heads. Jolie's character has a kid return to her that is clearly not her son. When he says goodnight to her, she flips out.
Good night, Mommy. Oh, stop saying that! Stop saying that! I'm not your mother! I want my son back. You're not my son! I want my son back. I want my son back! Damn you! I want my son back.
Jawheads, I want you to do me a favor. Pull your phone out of your pocket and go to your YouTube app. Search for the Cinemajaw channel and hit subscribe. Really, please do it right now. This will do two things. One, it helps us reach more people. We want to spread the good word about film, and you clicking subscribe really helps us do that. And two, it costs you nothing. That's right. Subscribing to Cinemajaw on YouTube is fun and it's free. Think of it as a donation that doesn't even cost you anything. Even if you just listen to the podcast and never really watch the videos, you subscribing on YouTube helps us make the podcast better too. But please check out a few videos while you're there. We think they're pretty good. So right now, while you're listening, before you forget, take your phone out. It shouldn't even interrupt the show. And go to YouTube, search Cinemajaw, and hit subscribe. And thank you so much.
And we are back on Cinemajaw. Matt, before we get to our review of Mitchell's vs. the Machines, and before you take Phil on in Guy movie trivia, we threw a bunch of items into the fish tank, and I know Phil wants his revenge. So let's open up that fish tank and let that guy out.
Wait a moment! It's fish! Isn't it?
DC! Wake up! Wake up! No, Pat, it's a giant glass bowl. Hey, get some fish folk.
Who's coming with me besides Flipper? Here.
That's a Sicilian message. It means Luca Brasi sleeps with the fishes.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Thank you guys so much. It's wonderful to be out. By this time, when the Jawheads are all listening to this, I will be taking revenge out on either Matt or Ryan for making me edit out all of the furious typing I was doing, looking up all of these questions. I'm sure that got picked up on the mic, and that's something that in post I'm going to have to take care of. That being said, there's a lot in here. Our first one. When was our top 5 female action stars episode, and was Angelina Jolie in it? So I gotta be honest, guys, I didn't see a top 5 female action stars. The 2 closest ones I could think of were top 5 kick-ass moms, which I don't think it was, and then top 5 female superheroes. That was episode 271 with guest Tim Seeley.
Yes, I remember that one.
And
Quite
neither of them did Angelina show up. However, infamously in the top 5 female superheroes one, Mary Poppins did show up. So
Yes.
Yeah, we got into an epic battle on that one.
Oh, I hated that episode. I was so pissed at Matt. I still remember it. Yep.
And Tim still came back after that. What a nice guy.
I know.
Had fun.
But that was our first impression with Tim, and we were pissed at each other. Almost went to blows.
No, I think Tim was on my side, though. He was like, what are you
No,
talking
I'm saying me versus you. I mean, we were pissed. Yeah, Tim was just like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah, I think it was unfair. Tim was like in that position when you're a kid and you're at your friend's house for dinner and their parents start fighting.
That's the position we put it every guest in every week.
It's never comfortable on Cinemajaw.
No.
Never. Our next one, what were the last 3 Josh Hartnett films? Every time we do this, here's the thing. These people who we never hear from are, I think, laundering money. They are making money. They are in movies. Josh Hartnett has been in so much. His last 3 are all within the last year and a half and that's not counting. I always want to say Wrath of the Titans, but that's not it. Wrath of Man. So before Wrath of Man was 2021's Exterminate All the Brutes. No idea what it is. Doesn't have a Wikipedia page. Can't find anything about it.
Perfect. Wow. This is what I'm talking
certainly
about.
A money laundering scheme. But he's a credit. He was also in 2020's Most Wanted, which
I think I actually heard of that one.
It did a little bit better. It's at about 65% rotten. I looked into it, and friend of the show, Steve Procopi, had a review. And what he writes on it is, much of the stuff with the investigation and dirty police stuff feels weirdly familiar to the point where it never really takes hold at all. Glowing review.
Yeah.
And before that was also 2020's Inherit the Viper.
Oh, these are great titles.
I mean, he's working. He's
truly
working.
That's what I'm saying. This is
3 movies in a year. I mean, come on.
4 if you count Wrath of Man.
Sure.
I couldn't find a single friend of the show watching. However, I did find from Observer Magazine this quote from Rex Reed: "Despite a runtime of only 85 minutes, it feels like days." So,
it's beautiful. But the reason I wanted those titles was that's what I'm talking about. I mean, this guy is career is just completely tanked. I mean, he used to be, I mean, he was in Pearl Harbor. It was supposed to be like, he was in 30 Days of Night, and now he's in these like direct to DVDs that we don't even hear of ever,
Yeah. Pearl Harbor and 30 Days of Night. As much as I love 30 Days of Night, both of those movies are questionable. I mean, especially Pearl Harbor.
Agree. But I'm talking about, I mean, it was a massive movie.
Big budget, for sure.
Big budget, heavy promotion.
We had a lot of last fews in here. So our next one, what was Paul Newman's last film? Technically, you were both wrong. He is credited in 2017's Cars 3. However, that was all they had found, like old audio that that they redid. And then before that, he was in a couple of documentaries, which I'm not sure we're counting. He did voiceover for them. Those would be 2008's Meerkats and 2007's Dale, about Dale Earnhardt Jr. And then before that, like his last like acting performance was Cars in 2006.
Yeah,
so Matt
I was
right.
Son of a gun. See, Ryan?
That was 4 years after Road to Perdition in 2002.
Interesting.
I was right by a lot.
Yeah, by quite a bit. Because even, I mean, Cars 3, I would even still give to Matt. What is the remake of this one was just Cold Pursuit remake in my notes. So Cold Pursuit is the American version of the 2014 film Order of Disappearance, or as it's known in its home country, Norway, Kraftidioten. That's very phonetic. I don't know how it's actually pronounced. I apologize.
I just want to tip my hat to Matt for even knowing that it was a remake. Well done, Matt.
Well, you're welcome. I really did enjoy it. I would check out the original Norwegian film.
Interesting.
And then our very last question in here, who was the actor who portrayed the Punisher in the TV show? And that would be John Bernthal. Matt was correct. He is from The Walking Dead. And Jawheads also might remember him from his role in Fury, Baby Driver, and most recently he was also in Ford v Ferrari.
Yeah.
A lot of car racing in this box.
No doubt. Was that everything, Phil?
That's all we got.
All right. Jump back in there.
You betcha.
Ryan, that brings us to our review of The Mitchells versus The Machines. After the pandemic shuffle from theaters directly to Netflix, the movie that was once titled Connected was renamed The Mitchells versus The Machines and finally released. From the genius team that brought us Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse and the Lego movies comes a tale of family bonding during a robot apocalypse. Can this movie connect? Or is it just a failed upload?
Let it begin.
The last humans must be here somewhere. Wait.
They're coming.
Is that a burnt orange 1993 station wagon? Or is it... Who are these unstoppable warriors?
We're the Mitchells, the only people who can save the world. I'm super sorry, everyone.
Let me introduce myself. I'm Katie. I'm sort of a weirdo. My parents haven't figured me out yet. To be fair, it took me a while to figure myself out. My brother, also weird.
Hi, would you like to talk to me about dinosaurs? No. Okay, thank you.
And my mom.
Katie face cupcakes.
All of us, really.
How about we put our phones down and we can make 10 seconds of unobstructed family eye contact. Starting now. See, this is good right here. This is natural.
Ryan, let me get this out of the way. The Mitchells versus the Machines is a great movie It is my favorite film of 2021 so far, and I believe wholeheartedly that it will be tough to beat as Best Animated Picture come next award season. The basic premise is that viral video artist Katie Mitchell has a normal family life. And when I say normal, I mean it's reasonably dysfunctional in the realistic ways that all of our families are. She's pretty well adjusted, but her father and her seem to have this generation gap that's just too wide to jump over. And they never fully connect the way that they did when she was a little girl. After a particularly disastrous family dinner, he decides that in order to repair their relationship, he will cancel her plane tickets to college and instead drive her across the country as a last hurrah family road trip. What could go wrong? The robot apocalypse, Rye. That's what. Now it's up to the Mitchells as the last remaining uncaptured humans on Earth to save the world. We've talked about animation in animation, like when we reviewed the Raya and the Last Dragon. There's plenty of it here. This movie is just dripping with style, flourish, and enough deep internet culture Easter eggs to bear fruit on multiple viewings. It's a fast-paced, almost frenetic action movie that simply blazes ahead. It's also the funniest movie I have seen in maybe well over a year or two. There's so many times I had to rewind a joke so my entire family could take it in again, and we all laughed until we cried both times. It touches on family dynamics, Instagram jealousy, LGBTQ dynamics, tech company overreach, all without preaching any angles. If any criticism must be made, it's that the apocalypse is very kid-friendly. And I'm sure that's by design, but I do wonder what this film could have looked like with some of the gloves pulled off, but maybe that's just me. Also, I got to take a moment here on the soundtrack. There are some deep cuts here from like Riot Girl bands like the Bangs and La Tigra, all the way to like internet underground hits and even some like Tron-like thrum for the headquarters of the Machines. This movie sounds almost as good as it looks. The cast is star-studded with the likes of Olivia Colman, Maya Rudolph, Conan O'Brien, Danny McBride, Fred Armisen, but those big names never overshadow the relatable characters they portray. This is a visually stunning, fast-paced, family sci-fi adventure with great action, better laughs, and enough jokes across the spectrum to make everyone in your family bust a gut. Watch it as soon as you can.
I agree, Matt. I totally agree. There is an energy to this film that is kinetic. I love the Mitchell family, all of them, even the dog.
Especially the dog.
Especially the dog, I guess. The storyline of Pal, the AI on everyone's phone taking over, was perfect. It leads to war between man and machine. And I liked, you say you could have took the gloves off a little bit. I was totally fine with the level that they got to. The animation jumps at you. As you mentioned, the use of mixed media was brilliant. Loved the voice casting, as you mentioned, especially Olivia Colman as the evil pal. Just perfect casting. Plenty of hidden Easter eggs, as you mentioned. Some I'm sure I will discover on repeat viewings. But for now, my favorite was seeing a sign for Redemax, the burger that made New Buffalo famous. And
I'm not familiar with this Easter egg.
And I am going to blow Matt up here because Matt always gives me such a hard time on, of course, Ryden wouldn't know that. Of course he wouldn't.
Well, you just tend not to be, really plugged into this
Matt's
kind of thing.
parents live where? Where does Matt's parents live?
They live in Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Kalamazoo, Michigan. He makes the drive over there 100 times a year. Maybe that's a little bit much, but all the time. Redemax, okay, the family, the Mitchells, starts off in Michigan, is where they're supposed to be. And then they're supposed to go to California. Redemax is the most famous burger place in the entire Midwest, and it's on your way to Kalamazoo, and there's signs for it everywhere. Redemax, it's got the big guy smiling, eating a burger, and it says, very funny, the burger that made New Buffalo, Michigan famous. And it's jam-packed. It's the kind of place that if you go in the summer, it can fit maybe 200 and 300 people, and you're still going to wait maybe an hour, and you don't mind because it's a very, family-oriented place. And somehow I knew the Kabinskis had never been there, even though you've probably driven by it 600 times.
I got to be honest. I've never even heard of it. Didn't notice the sign in the movie. I have no idea what you're talking about.
I love when the sign popped up. It had me rolling. I couldn't believe they put it in there. It was great. I love me some Redemax, and very seldom do I step into the state of Michigan, Matt, and not go to Redemax. It's almost never happened. I got a very heavy Tron vibe. I like that you picked out the sound. I'm just talking about the animation, the look.
Oh, yeah.
Villain's lair, if you will, jumped out at me as being very Tron-esque. I loved it.
100%. I mean, I don't even know if they were trying to hide it per se, or this was not like it was an overt homage to Tron, obvious nod to Tron stylings at the end there. Dude, this movie is so funny. I was like laughing my ass off, crying. Tears were streaming down my face. I was like ugly crying, like my nose started running. The dog alone is so funny. There's so many
damn funny.
Holy crap, dude. So it's very rare that you get, and I'm glad that you saw this Redemax thing. I have no idea what you're talking about, but that's what I'm saying. This movie has so many layers for like everyone. Like the kids in your family, like the very young kids, like Quinn's age, my 7-year-old, he liked the dog fart jokes, like totally got it. I mean, don't get me wrong, I laughed at those too. And then there's stuff like the Redemax thing, which you picked up on,
Right. I agree. This is such a family film. I watched it, and I texted you late on a night. It was like probably like 11 o'clock at night. And I texted, have the Kabinskis watched the Mitchells versus the Machines, because I'm watching it and I'm having just an absolute blast. But I was thinking to myself, God, if Matt and his kids and his wife all watch this is like the perfect film for the Kabinskis to watch, So I was pushing you to watch it as a family unit, and to hear that reaction. That's awesome. My only nitpick with the movie, and then this is minor, is there's a scene in there where Kate, the main child there, has this conversation with her brother, and she basically says that she's only being nice to the dad to sort of like get through this trip and to, speed things along, and that she's not being very sincere. And it was just, oh my God, we know that this is going to be seen before, or I should say seen again by the father. And I thought that could have been a little bit hidden in some way. It was just so blatantly obvious as someone who watches movies of like, geez, okay, we see where this is going. That was my only nitpick. And that's very minor, very, very minor.
Yeah. And in all honesty, I guess I was so wrapped up in the story that I didn't find that too predictable. Even though in hindsight, yeah, it is predictable. If I had like a tiny nitpick, I would say, other than the one I mentioned in my review, at times it's a little too crazy and it gets a little, just a smidge too cluttered here and there.
Mm-hmm.
Very minor complaint.
Right. I will say this too, and this is, going back to the Netflix theater debate. I'm glad that this is in Netflix and everybody can view it. But in some ways, I was like sort of disappointed afterwards that this wasn't like a moment of the year. I think this movie could have, you know what I mean? This could have been the moment, one of those movie moments where everybody's going to see it and talking about it. And I miss that so much. And it feels like there was just no promotion. I mean, I didn't know anybody talking about this movie at all. And then when I watched it, I'm like, oh my God, I'm with you right now. As of today, it's my favorite movie of 2021 as well. And I'm like, why isn't everybody talking about this film? And it's just sort of disappointing that it just sort of shows up on Netflix with no major promotion behind it. You know what I mean?
I guess it's starting to find its audience. It's getting a lot of rave reviews out there. So I think it's got some life left in it. Maybe it's just not about opening weekend anymore. Maybe it's about that slow burn like it used to be in the VHS days of rentals, making a movie like The Big Lebowski take off after a failure at the box office.
Yeah.
Box office doesn't necessarily have the last word on a film's worth. Another great example, The Princess Bride. One of the most beloved films of all time was a relative failure at the box office. It came out the same week as what was it? Fatal Attraction. And it just died at the box office. They didn't know how to market it right. And then, VHS market comes out and it gets the second life. And now it's this classic we all hold on to. So could be that sort of effect that we're now seeing in slow motion.
I think it's hard for family movies too right now because not every member of a family can necessarily be vaccinated. There's regulations federally. And so like if I'm Matt, I'm sure, because Quinn and I don't think Parker is old enough to get vaccinated at the moment either.
They're about to change some of those recommendations, but yes, you're right.
How about a jaw-dropping moment? You got one here, Matt?
The dog shield. I was just absolutely couldn't stop laughing. That was my longest sustained fit of laughter. Yeah, man, maybe in over a year.
So my jaw-dropping moment also involves the dog, but this is when Furby's. So he's got these eyes that are. He's got the dog has these eyes that are crooked, and he can't look straight. My jaw-dropping moment would actually be when, and it's a running joke throughout the movie, when an object, keeping it from spoilers, but everybody who's seen the movie will know what I'm talking about here. When an object is finally coming towards the dog and he makes this very hard, concentrated effort to correct his eyes so that he can see the object coming towards him, and he still misses the object, and what transpires. That entire sequence, I was just laughing hysterically. It was just so well played that joke ran throughout the movie, and it had a payoff like it did. Was hats off to him.
So apparently something that Parker was very excited about is the dog Manchi in the film is voiced by Doug the Pug, who's a real pug. And they like recorded his audio, got him to bark on command by showing him videos of horses on YouTube. And there's you can go behind the scenes and watch the videos on YouTube of Doug the Pug recording
interesting
his snorts and barks and things like that.
When are the Kabinskis going to watch it again?
Oh, we're actually going to watch it again probably this weekend. I'm going to Michigan, as a matter of fact. Maybe we'll stop at
Stop at Redemax. The family will love it. I gave you one recommendation on Mitchell's versus the Machines. Trust me on Redemax.
Wait, where's New Buffalo, Michigan? Is that like
it's
way up in the
right over the border? Right,
okay.
As soon as you cross into Michigan, coming from Chicago, you're going to go through New Buffalo.
All right, I will make this a thing. We'll do it, Ryan.
It's
just for you.
You'll love it, as long as everybody eats burgers over there. You got a movie poster quote?
My quote is, "The Mitchells versus the Machines is my movie of the year."
Wow. Matt coming out swinging. I went with dog, pig, loaf of bread. Great movie.
That was awesome. Phil, you got to see this one, dude. This is right up your alley.
It's a great one.
I'm upset that I didn't have the time to see it.
It's all kinds of punk rock too, dude. It really is.
I will call you out. I don't necessarily think we should count La Tigre as Riot Girl. It's not Bikini Kill, but that's okay.
You're the only person probably that I know that would call me out on that. And you're right. They're technically not part of the Riot Girl movement, but
it's Kathleen Hanna.
It's Kathleen Hanna, and she kind of started Riot Girl, so anything she touches. Plus, La Tigre is pretty activist and punk rock in their own right. So
absolutely.
And feminist. So
just not Riot Girl genre, Riot Girl mentality. It's like a Kate Nash thing.
Yeah.
And I don't even have to ask you, do I? How many Jaws?
4 Jaws, 100%.
4 Jaws from Rye the Movie Guy also. 4 Jaws, first time this year for both Matt and Rye on Mitchell's vs. the Machines. It is streaming exclusively on Netflix. If you see it, agree, disagree, just want to comment, shoot us a tweet at Cinemajaw or an email, feedback@cinemajaw.com. We hear some music playing, and that can mean only one thing, Matt K. It's time for you to take Phil on in movie trivia.
Oh, yeah. I'm ready.
Oh, boy.
I saw you turning Pal off. Is Pal off?
Pal is off. Yes, I did that on screen so you guys know I am not cheating.
In honor of Wrath of Man, directed by Guy Ritchie, we are playing Guy movie trivia. Phil, you want to go first or let Matt K go first?
I think you already know the answer to this, Rye the Movie Guy.
Phil is going
first.
first. And a reminder, in case you needed it, you each have one rescue. Here we go.
All right.
Question 1 over to Phil. Guy movie trivia. Jim Carrey starred with Matthew Broderick in this 1996 film.
This was my favorite film growing up. That's The Cable Guy.
Ooh, The Cable Guy is correct. 1-0. Question 2 over to Matt K. Matt, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days starred Kate Hudson and this shirtless wonder.
Matthew McConaughey.
1-1. 1-1. Everybody perfect. Back over to Phil. Guy Ritchie has made one film with Brad Pitt. Name it.
It's the one where he's hard to understand.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. I hate this. I can picture him talking about the pigs. What's it called? Boxing guy. I'm so mad
over this
I'm
one. He's
so
all
mad.
over this one.
I'm so mad. I don't know. I'm completely blanking on the name of this stupid movie, and Matt's gonna get it because I explained the whole thing.
I already knew, Phil.
You do have a rescue if you want to use it on question 3.
I'm not using it now. We'll just give it to Matt. He's gonna say it, and I'm gonna be mad.
I said it earlier.
Yep.
Yes.
Snatch is correct, Matt K. 2-1, Matt. Question 4 is over to him. I don't like this. Matt, name the singer behind the song Bad Guy. She is also singing the upcoming Bond song, No Time to Die.
Billie Eilish.
That is correct. 3-1, Matt K. Phil, we need a big comeback here. The Other Guys starred Will Ferrell and this actor who played his partner.
Was that Mark Wahlberg?
That is correct. On the road to recovery here, 3-2. Question 6 over to Matt K. Matt, 1 year before this actor made the film Rush Hour, he made a film called Mr. Nice Guy. Name him.
Jackie Chan?
That is correct. 4-2 with 2 questions left. Phil, name the actor who appears in LA Confidential, The Hurt Locker, and Iron Man 3.
Guy Pearce.
Doesn't even need a rescue is what Phil says right there.
Wow.
I should have used it on stupid ass Snatch.
I know. 4-3. Last question over to Matt K. Matt, this 2001 film starred Vin Diesel, Seth Green, Dennis Hopper, and John Malkovich. It was about the sons of Brooklyn mobsters. Name the film.
I need a clue. I'm no Phil. Rescue me, Ryan.
Whoa, a rescue on question 8. Matt, your clue is this clue will knock it out of the park.
Read the names one more time for me.
Okay, we'll do it one more time for Matt. Okay,
Yeah.
That's fine. All right, 2001 film. It starred Vin Diesel, Seth Green, Dennis Hopper, and John Malkovich. And it's about the sons of Brooklyn mobsters.
This clue will knock it out of the park.
Right.
Home run guy? I don't know.
Incorrect. Phil, you also have a rescue if you want to use it.
Wait, he gets another clue?
Yeah, why not? There could be another clue on this one if you want to use it.
I'll go for it. I was honestly going to guess home run guy, so I'll take this. I'll take this rescue.
Were you really
There's no
home
shame
run
in
guy?
that. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking too.
Okay, Matt's clue was this clue will knock it out of the park. Your clue is this clue should get you around the answer. Knock it out of the park.
It still makes it
Around
seem like
the
a
answer.
home run. Grand Slam guy?
Boxing ring guy?
So I was saying knocks it out of the park. I was just looking for knock and around the answer. It was the knock around guys. The knock
I've
around
never
guys.
heard of that. I mean,
I didn't even know Seth Green was still alive.
Seth Green. I mean, it's Dennis Hopper that was throwing me off.
Wow.
I thought he passed before.
Wasn't Dennis Hopper in the movie
this
that
was
Michael B. Jordan's in at the
2001
end
this
of?
came out, I said.
Oh, I thought it was like 2013. I was not listening at all.
Well, Matt wins this one. Matt wins this one 4-3. Virtual handshake there, guys.
Well done. Well done, Matt.
Came down to a tie. This question would have been over to Matt. Better Guy Ritchie film, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, or Snatch?
Lock, Stock.
You're actually right. I just wanted to ring the buzzer anyways, but I'm a Lock, Stock fan also. I know there's Snatch people out there, but I'm a Lock, Stock guy.
Snatch.
I mean, at the end of the day, Snatch is what made this game, Matt. You owe it that much.
Yes, it does.
That's true.
The real jawbreaker was this: age of Guy Pearce closest to. Matt?
Oh, I still can't get over his terrible age makeup in the
Prometheus.
Alien Prometheus. Thank you. I think Guy Pearce is in his early 50s. I'll say he's 51 years old.
Lock him in at 51. Phil?
I really, because we talked about Prometheus not that long ago, and I looked up Guy Pearce, and there's a part of me that wants to say 57.
53. We give that one to Matt by just a nudge.
Choo-choo. All right.
I was so confident in that 57 too. There was in the back of my head, I was like, I think this is it.
Yeah, I know.
This thing that I looked up 4 weeks ago stuck.
You had that look on your face like when you're playing the game Memory, like, and I think the king is right there. Nope, you're wrong, Phil. It wasn't.
Sometimes the 7 can look like a 3.
Yeah,
maybe that was it.
Oh, man, brings us to the end of a great jaw. First and foremost, we got to thank our editor, our producer, Phil. Fill me in, Phil.
Oh, always happy to do it, guys. You know I love doing it.
Matt, we also got to thank the sponsors.
Yes, thank you, Overcast and the Chicago Podcast Co-op, who help us get great sponsors like them.
It's also a good time to thank the Patreons.
It is. These are the cream of the crop, as I like to say, the intelligentsia. Join us on Patreon. You will unlock some bonus content. We just did our top 5 video games of all time, which was an incredibly fun time to record. So if you're wondering what we have to think about your favorite video games, you should just join us on Patreon. And there's bad superhero movie reviews, all kinds of stuff that we're always throwing out there. So we'd like to see you go to patreon.com/Cinemajaw and get in on all this fun.
I agree. Just a little note on that top 5 video games of all time. We recorded this late at night. It was probably after midnight.
Are you making excuses?
I think it was like 2 a.m.
And to be honest, though, I thought, well, all we're doing is a top 5. Let's get this thing done and in the can. I saw the runtime when you put that thing out there. We talked for like 55 minutes.
Yeah.
Insane. So we had a lot of fun talking video games. So do join us on Patreon, and thank you to all the Patreons that support Cinemajaw. You guys are the lifeblood of this podcast. But if you want to support Cinemajaw an easier way, click subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast.
Yeah, that's the easy and free thing you can do. Like, you can start there, click subscribe. It really helps us out a lot.
Yep, and leave us a review. Until next week, I'm Ryan the Movie Guy.
I'm Matt K.
And keep on jawing about the movies.